Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at the Nautical Institute's Southwest of England branch meeting, where we have a presentation about the role of the Harbourmaster from Captain Richard Allen. As I always say at the beginning of the intro, if you're not a member of the Nautical Institute, please do consider joining us. There will be CPD certificates available after this presentation. If anyone would independently like to email me, I can provide that for them. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Richard and this month's exciting presentation. Thank you, Richard. The floor's all yours.
Thanks, Gordon. I wouldn't go as far as saying exciting, but it's a little bit Plymouth. I'll give a little bit of an overview about harbour mastering and my background before becoming a harbour master. So, like many of you here, I was a seafarer, traditional cadetship, Warsash. Worked my way through the ranks, ship companies included Royal Fleet Auxiliary, BP, bit of Odyssey exploration off the south coast, some treasure hunting, and Swire Pacific offshore in the last sort of 5-10 years, specialising in subsea work, diving, saturation diving, mostly off South Africa, before taking an opportunity to come back home and getting a job in Plymouth, which is my hometown, which is fantastic. So tonight, I'm not sure, Plymouth, it's amazing. The amount of people in Plymouth don't know that there's a commercial port in Plymouth. People think we're a Navy port, and I think for vessel moves, we're considerably busier than the Navy port for ships moves. But we do come under the dockyard port order, we do come under QHMs, but we are the statutory harbour authority for the Catwater, which you can see behind there, which is the commercial port in Plymouth and the biggest in the southwest. Different hat on, I'm also the competent harbour authority for all of civilian pilotage in Plymouth. So Brittany ferries or any commercial ships that are going up to the Tamar Bridge, to the Lara Bridge. That's my responsibility to make sure that vessel move has been assessed and is done safely with one of my pilots or my team on board. So I won't stay too much on the legislation, but all harbour authorities have got different acts and powers. You've got the Harbours Act, you've got the Pilotage Act, and they all come into force to giving us powers of special direction and the powers of what we do, powers to dredge, powers to maintain and preserve and improve the harbours, and safety of navigation is our key. A little bit of history on us. The first reference to us was in 1708 when it was Queen Anne who referenced the Catwater, and we need someone to basically look after the Catwater, because back then that was the dockyard. The Navy ships were based outside Sutton Pool, obviously where the Mayflower vessel left. How we actually came about was there was a great storm. I can't remember the date. I'm glad it wasn't 2022, a few weeks ago, when that storm Eunice came through, but this was in the 1608, I seem to think. Many of the ships at anchor washed up onto the rocks, which is now Queen Anne's Battery, and many lives were lost, unfortunately. That bay is now called Dead Man's Bay, and there's a Dead Man's Bay buoy there, and that's the history of the name. And from that, the big disaster for the naval fleet, we were then constituted to build the Mountbatten Breakwater, which, if you're walking along the breakwater, you can actually see there we go at the top, the plaque that was built by the Catwater Harbour Commissioners, and that's how we came into force, to look after, to protect the Catwater, the port of Plymouth. Since then, the Navy have obviously gone up the Tamar and developed the dockyard. So, types of ports. I don't want to suck eggs. I'm pretty sure everyone's here is a master mariner and fully knows what types of ports there are. But Plymouth is a good example of the different types of port. We've got MOD ports. So in England, you've got Plymouth, Portsmouth, and Faslane, isn't it, right? That's it. Faslane Naval Base. Private ports. So in Plymouth, we've got ABP. So that's a private port. They've got shareholders. They're very much a business. They've got dividends to pay to shareholders. Trust ports. Plymouth is a trust port. We are a trust port here. So we are there for the benefit for the water users. We've got a duty holder board who is made up of subject matter experts for the good of the city, for the good of the port. and our income is from our stakeholders, and what money we make, we've then got to reinvest into the port, looking after it, improving and maintaining the depth channels, for example. A council port. So Portsmouth is a good example of a council port. Closer to home, you've got Torbay, and most of the Cornwall ports are actually council run. There are a few trust ports in Cornwall: Padstow, Falmouth Harbour Commissioners, but Truro, St Ives, they're all council run ports. Our backbone to everything we do, even though it's not law, we follow this as closely as we can. This is a guide. This is the Port Marine Safety Code. So in that, we've got the Port Marine Safety Code, and there's a guide to good practice. Everything we do relates to the guide to good practice or the Port Marine Safety Code. Seafaring point of view, you know what a safety management system is. This is pretty much a shoreside safety management system that we sort of have to follow as closely as we can. Other duties, I think there was a saying someone said to me when I came to shore, one of the most highly regulated positions working as a master mariner. You've got so many rules and regulations to follow, and they're only second to a harbour master, stepping out of one to going into the next one. So the unlimited amount of legislation and duties that we've got, but the key duties that we've got is safety of navigation, enforcement, Environment Act, which has just changed. We've now got different duties under the Environment Act. Conservancy, that's one of our key duties. I'm not sure if you can see the pictures because your faces are in the way, but prime example there, enforcement. There's the MOD police prosecuted someone 2-3 weeks ago, a jet skier, and we've had 5 jet ski prosecutions in the last 2 years, as well as powers to give antisocial banning orders out on the water. And in the last 12 months, Plymouth has seen a 70% reduction in antisocial behaviour reports from jet skis. So a good effort has gone in there to improve the enjoyment on the water. When it goes wrong, there's a fishing boat there up on Mountbatten Breakwater. I think he was fined, prosecuted, found guilty, pleaded guilty. There was a bit of alcohol involved and a bit of Strictly Come Dancing. Mix the two together and you're up on the breakwater. As well as our conservancy oil spill. Every leisure boat, fishing boat, commercial ship, it's on our responsibility, and we're a tier 2 responder with a contract with a tier 3 and 4 responder to respond to any oil in the water or any environmental issues. So the environment, Plymouth is actually a fantastic place for the environment, and it's actually the most highly protected waters in Europe at the moment. We've got SACs, SPAs, all making up the Plymouth Sound and Estuaries waterway. What we've got is something called TECF, which is the Tamar Estuaries Consultative Forum, and that's a group of collaborative stakeholders that all put into this pot of knowledge and experience. And our main role is to improve the condition of the Sound and its waters for Natural England to get the conditions improved. We're actually going through the next 10-year plan now to improve the harbour and the Plymouth Sound and what we can do. And we're working with Environment Agency, Natural England, local councils, all the key stakeholders that are responsible, have statutory responsibilities for the waters and approaches around Plymouth. Port air quality, we have a port air quality strategy in the port. DFT brought that in. Yes, you must do it. They never actually offered guidance saying what it should contain. So we took it on our own backs, and we've now got a running document which we update every year. But the way we've gone is all the stakeholders are engaged in it, and we'll update on what the different stakeholders are doing around at the port at the moment. For example, Victoria Wharf, they've just fitted new bits of equipment onto all their equipment, and they are burning clean, which is a massive win for the port. It's a company called EcoMotors who are really doing quite well. They're almost burning clean, but from a business point of view, they're also saving 30% on diesel costs, which is really at their forefront of their thinking at the moment, with the prices going up and the red diesel duty disappearing. We support projects all around the water. For example, seagrass. You might have seen that on the news. You might have seen that on Country File on Sunday night. You know, we are doing that exact thing in Plymouth, and it's actually us and my team that's laying that seagrass. And community engagement. That's a continual process.
It's 30 metres in length, and she has a 60-ton bollard pull. It's horrendous, right? Horrendous.
So when you left the Admiralty to go commercial,
Yeah.
did you struggle with ship handling? Because
No, I didn't. No, I found it strange, but because we're okay, pilot, all yours. Okay, I thought, bloody hell, no, it's just, like every mariner, they like driving a ship, don't they? It's their ship, you know. But no, it was the language barrier was a little bit strange. You know, say, you know, your boss was the word, and yeah. And press it. Oh no. But no, it was a learning curve for me. I've got to admit, and I thought, oh, well, that's good, you know. And just go back to the tugs. Whenever the tugs that I worked with the Brittany ferries, the tugs didn't like attaching the line because the power of the Brittany ferry. Obviously, the Brittany ferry is requested at tugs because of the weather, right? And the power on the Brittany ferries will overturn the tug if it's attached, you know. And some of the tug masters didn't like it. But there you go. But the catboat is as I say, it's like Richard said. People thought Plymouth was a navy port, but it is, you know. I mean, Richard said it's what comes into the port, you know. It's what they charge for fees and that, which is good, you know. But yeah, I think that's about it. Just a quick one with when the Vanguard submarine first came into Plymouth. Okay, that was all the training for the Vanguard submarine was done by the Dutch. Marin, ever heard of Marin, Holland? They sent all the tug masters, all the pilots over to Marin, simulator training, you know, to do sort of a breakdown or a rudder jam. That was proved with Marin, and it was good training. It's where so when a Trident submarine comes into Plymouth, it's always got six tugs, because if this tug breaks down, we've got to have this one to do that, you know. And obviously, when the Vanguard, it will never make the Vanguard turn without a tug alongside. The two tugs come alongside. This is the submarine. Two tugs come alongside. On the back end, they use it as a rudder. It's very interesting. I think that's about it.
cheers, Ray.
So I was going to ask, how difficult is it to board them, the nuclear submarines? Because obviously they're an unusual shape.
Obviously, weather conditions. Yeah, it is a bit of a, because as you say, the side of the submarine slopes. You've got to, you know, you've got to be a bit of an athlete. It was awkward. You know, you had to grab the line and then you actually jump with a bloke behind you with a safety harness on, jump and then go up. It was obviously weather conditions. You know, it's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You know. The best submarines was the German submarines, the U-20s. You used to go up in the fin, at the top of the fin. It was only you, the captain, and the navigator, and you sat like a fair seat, you know, the seats you have in the fair, and you actually sat, you know, you sat looking over on the side of the submarine because the silver chair. Yeah.
Fantastic, right? There's a submarine captain in this room, and he was nodding his head when he said about the porpoise. Is that right?
And
You're nodding your head.
Yes.
yeah,
Fantastic.
after forward,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you've got tanks all over the place. So you
Yeah.
adjust the weight. The easiest way to get on a submarine, you know, to get on it is to come on there where the conning tower is, because you can usually get a. They've got a handrail. They've got a small handrail.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you can.
So that's what the exhaust is about, isn't it?
Yeah, on the diesel.
Yeah.
On the diesel.
Yeah.
So I Plymouth.
The helicopter? Have we used the helicopter?
Yes. I just go back to when the aircraft carriers used to come here.
Yeah.
To get aboard the aircraft, it was like a swinging trapeze.
All right.
In health and safety crept in, and they used to take us out to the aircraft carriers from Rover. Well, when Rover was going. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Can I just ask the question of the nuclear subs? Are they dead in terms of engines when they come in and just rely totally on tugs, or do they actually have to maintain their own power?
Oh no, they got their own power. Yeah.
They have their own power.
Yeah, they've got a small electric motor, which they use usually when they're in harbour.
They're not cold ship. They're using propulsion. So
Yeah.
It's available if you need it.
They got the egg beater, haven't they? The egg beater, which is like a bow thruster, but it's an egg beater. It's you know.
You keep the power, you keep the nuclear power available, but you try not to use it.
Yeah.
unless you had to.
Fantastic. Cheers, Ray. So a lot of work that I'm doing personally. Plymouth is primarily a bulk port, bulk liquids, bulk cargoes exported around the world. A lot of effort in the last 2 years is trying to diversify the port. We've got to look after our core customers, and they're doing very well, but we've got to look outside the box a little bit. This map here was put together, was a bit of a paper we put to the council just to make them realise that there was a port in Plymouth, and they said, can we have an idea of what ports you operate with to and from in the last year? And I said, well, we can't do that because it's too many. But this was the last 3 weeks, or the last 4 weeks, I think it was, we gave to the council. So these are the ports that we operate with and from in Europe, just to give them a quick snapshot of the trade links, Plymouth and the rest of Europe, as well as across the Atlantic. Jack-up barges, we're key for heavy lift mobilisation for projects, heavy lift cranes, demob projects, offshore support vessels. Plymouth's got a great anchorage, nice and sheltered. Demob, mobilisation, ROV stores, something we're looking at, and super yachts. The world is starting to realise that the Plymouth Sound is quite fantastic, and people want their yachts and cruise ships to actually be in the Plymouth Sound and to be looked at, and it's what a great place to be. And here we go. A lot of effort has gone on cruise. I've spent all afternoon on a cruise day today, but here's a quick overview of the Golden Horizon that came last year. Very quick video.
Beautiful.
A Type 23 escort in, so they loved it on board.
Good target.
So from my point of view, passengers have historically always only wanted to go, well, I've only had the option to go into Mill Bay. Mill Bay is limited on the size and also the location of Mill Bay. Foot passengers, it's not a great experience if you're visiting Plymouth. So we've took it upon ourselves to actually designate the landing stage as a facility. So for 18 months now, we have been able to land passengers from foreign flag vessels to come into Plymouth so they can explore the city on foot, go on tours. And last year was the first year after the pandemic. It was a great success. This year, as at the presentation today, we've got the biggest ship ever to visit Plymouth coming in this year. And if every passenger does arrive as it's scheduled to, if the weather was perfect, it'll be close to £1 million spending money from cruise passengers. It's a lot of effort, but it's great when the effort pays off and they enjoy their visits to Plymouth.
Is there, Richard, is there still an organisation which is looking after this on the, if you like, more local side outside Plymouth? Because there was Destination South, there was a Destination Southwest, or which actually different cruise ships could actually go into different ports.
Yeah.
They
don't exist anymore. No.
They've gone.
So we've got a Devon cruise coordinator that pushes a number of ports, but Plymouth is obviously, from my point of view, what it's pushing.
And the other thing is that some years ago we were working sort of with Maritime Plymouth, and I think we got up to, was it something like 18 cruise calls a year? 19?
Well, including 4 in Falmouth, yeah.
And I don't know what numbers were this year planned in.
It's 12 this year.
12 years, so it's
12
not
this
10 then, isn't it?
12 this year, and about, I think it's about 10,000, 11,000 passengers coming in by foot into the Barbican. So it's gone from nothing to here, and the efforts we're doing now, everything takes 2 to 3 years for a cruise ship, because we're booking now for 2024. What we're seeing now is the efforts from 18 months ago. It's coming through.
Were you both in not Mill Bay?
So no, Mill Bay is an option. Great coach trips go down to Eden projects, but if they're bigger than Mill Bay, which a lot of the ships are, more than 250 metres in the Sound, and they'll tender direct into the Barbican or into Mill Bay, which there's a shift change. So passengers, they used to go on the trips. Now they've all got mobile phones. They want to do their own things. They don't want to pay £400 for a 20-minute taxi ride around Plymouth. They want to explore themselves. And by coming in boat across the Plymouth Sound, the home, it's fantastic.
Could I ask
Look at
another
the-
question too, please? Again, on the cruise issue.
Yeah.
Newbury was actually very much going to be the cruise terminal alongside sort of almost a tea jetty set up against the Trinity Pier.
Yeah.
Is that still in sort of mind of yourselves, or is it now sort of a dead?
I think every time the council changes, they say that's what they're going to do. But I think that's as far as it gets.
Right.
It's just not deep enough or big enough, basically. I mean, I've been in alongside the ferry berth at ABP on a 210, 15 metre Cunard cruise ship. The problem is that to get the people away and go on their tours, I mean, we sent loads of them down to Land's End on the coaches. Now, remember, they're on a tight itinerary, in at breakfast time, moored up by 7 o'clock, basically. They want to go away by 5 o'clock so they can be at sea when the meal times are and on to the next port. Usually, they went down to Land's End. The ones who went up to Dartmoor and around that way were all back in time. But we were on the bridge waiting, singled up, for the last coaches to come on. And because the timing on the Cornish roads was a problem. They just not got it. And there are about 8 coaches. So that's 400, out of half the passengers, just about, were not on board. And what's happening then was that Brittany Ferries wanted the berth. It's a hell of a pressure. So in many ways, they're always looking for somewhere different. I mean, we tried to take the QE2 into Peterhead. We had pilots, we had 4. She could take Panamax vessels, but look at the QE2 going in. She's a pig of shit. Couldn't. The agreement was we got the pilots to join in Southampton at the nav coming in on the QE2 with the master who was likely to be there. Took them up on the brim, and the pact was that the weather, whatever the weather, in the logbooks was going to be too tight to berth. So they went anchor off because they had the red arrows booked. The only thing was a Peterhead prison. But why? But they want somewhere different. And that's the marketing. Running out of ideas now for cruise ships, and they're so big. You're 300, 400 meters. The drafts they're at 10, 12 meters there, and 5,000 passengers. That's
The biggest selling point of Plymouth at the moment is the box. Everyone is being blown away by the box from the cruise customers, and that's the best thing they've done on feedback.
Just another point. There was a documentary the other night on the most luxurious cruise ship in the world, and one of the trips was to a sheep farm. And it was just interesting to realise that people saw this as an activity and an event to be part of their itinerary on a cruise ship. I was quite amazed.
So I see what trips they do, and I'm horrified at the prices. And they'll come out my way to go for a pasty for £400, So I've got Dartmoor ponies. Actual Dartmoor ponies, not hill ponies, but Dartmoor ponies. So I said, for £200, you can come out and ride one of our Dartmoor ponies through the woods, proper Dartmoor pony. But they would do that. So,
are there any plans with the Freeport for anything to happen with passenger vessels?
I don't think the Freeport would have any link to passengers. To be honest, there'd be no link at all, I think. But Brittany Ferries, one of our Plymouth's biggest positives is the ferry route into Europe. That's also one of our negatives, because that ferry is a big customer and it takes primacy. So if you've got a container ship or a vessel or a cruise ship that wants to come in, you're limited by that ferry schedule. So quite often, if you do come in, the ship's either going to have to go out again and come in again, which is then prohibitive because it's double pilotage, double tugs. So they just won't come to Plymouth. So the option of the sound and anchoring and tendering is fantastic for the operators. Going forward, what we're looking at, future trade, we've got a number of new contracts in the last couple of years, which is great. Offshore wind, Celtic wind project, we're not going to be the big players involved with that, but the offshore wind project is probably the biggest project the UK will see in my lifetime. There's no way that can just be supported on the North Devon and the South Wales ports. There will be numerous ports all playing a little part in that, and the technology and the trials and the background stuff that Plymouth's got, I think we're going to be quite key in actually the future trialing for the winds and the different designs, especially the floating wind and what's best to work. I think Plymouth's going to be key with that, with the University, Turnchapel Wharf and the South Coast approaches. Port future proofing, you know, there's a number of options in the pipeline that we're looking at with the wharfs. Some have got more traction than others, but it's all positive, all going in the right way. Ship's equipment, we've just invested in a new pilot boat, 40% cleaner, far safer for the pilots, far safer for its operators. And the people, you know, I don't think my organisation has probably invested in the people as much as it should do. Probably a thing with port authorities. People will go there, good little number, stay there for a long time. We've just started an apprentice program. We've got 2 fantastic young apprentices that are coming through now, and there's more in the pipeline. And to be honest, and 2 of those apprentices are now driving the workboats, driving the pilot boats, and driving the tugs. Not in an operational context, but they're really thriving at what they do. One of the girls is keen to become a cadetship, so we're talking with the Honourable Company of Master Mariners and maybe doing a joint arrangement to actually sponsor her through her cadetship at sea with a merchant navy. She's already done a couple of weeks on the Wick Champion, going around the UK coast with one of my PEC holders, and she's absolutely been sold on a career at sea. So, which is great because I'm a seafarer and we're here to get more British seafarers at sea. But hopefully one day she'll be like me and want to come back shoreside and hopefully work in the port. But to put it into context, the mindset of these people we're dealing with, she's 16 when she joined us. She lives in Somerset. She left home and she moved to Plymouth and lives on a boat on her own as a 16-year-old, looking after herself to come and be an apprentice with me. So if she was willing to do that, you can tell that she's going to go far as a seafarer, I think.
Yeah.
Here's just a few little examples. There's a Catwater Plymouth gateway to the world, a little bit cheesy. Actually, there's our 2 apprentices there. There's Katie with the astronaut Tim Peak. You know, I'm not saying we offer opportunities, but things do come up all the time that they just find themselves and they can't believe what they're doing, and we're just throwing everything at them and they're getting out as much of it as they can. Cement trader at the top there, that was what the video was of. That's one of the new ships that was specifically built so it can berth in Plymouth. That's 4,500 tons of cement, and due to the development of Sherford and Plymouth, the demand for cement and the trade is only going up, and it's compared with 5 years ago, I think it's trebled and it's continuing to rise. There's a quick overview of future plans. We won't lay on that because that's got some long way to go, but very exciting for the port, larger vessels, deeper berths, and we've already got the customers to fill it. And the fun stuff, the engagement that we do as a trust port, we're there for our stakeholders. We offer, you know, boat trips, we do water safety YouTube sessions, we get guest speakers. We take part in numerous events, paddleboarding safety events. We donate water, swimming floats, and it's great for our stakeholders, which we include residents as the stakeholders, because they're the one that complains about the noise and the smell of the ships and the emissions. So we put on boat trips and they get to meet us, they get to meet our environmental team, they get to meet the pilot who can talk them through the ships that's making the noises in the port, so they can just understand why we've got to come in at 3:30 in the morning because of the tide, and we can't always wait till 9 o'clock when it's low water to berth a ship. So I don't think we did enough of this in the past, but we're really trying to do what we can with engagement, not to get people on side, but to give them a greater understanding of what the port does. And Plymouth is only here because of the port, and we were built around the port.
On that side, Richard, is there sort of the possibility or potential for having a visitor centre like they do in many major ports, or have we not got quite the scope for that at the moment?
I don't think I'm that major, to be honest.
Sorry?
I don't think I'm that major. The box has got a bit on the port, but they seem to be very MOD centric, dockyard centric.
Yeah, I just wondered, I mean, sort of, you know, like Rotterdam, Antwerp and all the rest of it, they all have visitor centres associated to the port and the port work. I just wondered whether you had any ideas on that. So,
it's a good idea. I don't think we've got that much to show like Antwerp and Rotterdam. They are massive players.
Well, there was one of your former sort of past Habourmasters who actually said you were as busy in the port of on the Catwater as they were in Rotterdam. And he counted every yacht as a vessel movement.
Oh, okay. That's what the Navy do now. They count every barge move to build the numbers there. So yeah. There was a quick overview. Let's see, everyone's on mute online. So if anyone's got any questions for Ray or myself, please feel free and we'll try and answer.
Going back to trade again, because the question is, of course, we're all well, no, we're not. There's a lot of anti-fuel, anti-oil sort of activity going on. And eventually, of course, the idea is, in fact, that we will leave the carbon, these fossil fuels. That will be a big hole in your sort of business. And how are you looking at that into the future? What sort of, have you got any ideas as to how that's going to be compensated for in terms of the business or not?
Bottom line is, yes, it will be a big gap. We think you're probably going to lose 70% of that in 25 years. There will always be some coming in, but I think 75% of that trade will disappear. So yeah, we are putting a lot of effort into port developments to actually future-proof the ability to take the larger ships that we know the demand is for.
And on that then, do you actually have within your organisation a sort of person who's designated to actually go and find?
I think a meeting about 4 or 5 months ago about potentially changing the use of some of the wharfs to look at maybe some containerized vessel handling. Is there any sort of progress there? Any more thoughts on what might happen with that?
Yeah, so the university are about to release a paper on it. So I've just got to comment on it, and it's ready to go. Yeah, we think there's about 400 containers coming into or from or through Plymouth every week. So yeah, on trucks. So you get them off the roads. There's regular shuttle container ships going around to Bristol, to Dublin from Antwerp, going past Plymouth.
So you've got the capacity possibly to do that.
Yeah, and the other question is Princess Yachts. Every time they get 3 or 4 nice new yachts ready, they sail up to Portsmouth and Poole to go onto ships, which can be loaded in Plymouth. The ships can come into Plymouth now. I just don't understand why they're steaming around, loaded on Plymouth. So I'll bang that drum again. Let me see. It's like a yearly bang the drum.
Richard, is Gordon connected virtually? Do you wish to put up a last screen, or shall I stop sharing?
That's it. Sure.
Or put you on a final screen?
That's it.
Okay, I just stopped sharing now. Do you want to click off your screen, or are you happy there?
Well, I click stop share.
Yeah, I've just stopped sharing. Okay, we're back, to our screens now. Thank you very much. Oh, I was absolutely fascinated. I love the history behind it. Not all of that history was I aware of. I've been on the Mountbatten breakwater and that, but some of the history I myself was unaware of. So like somebody's raised there, I think some of the good things to note, because port operations like seafarers seem to be over the horizon or out of everyone's view. So making them aware of it, especially with your local community engagement and that, I should imagine is quite massive and quite eye-opening, even for those that live on the shoreline, as it were, in the area of the port. And I was quite amazed knowing the MOD side more than I do than the commercial port there, although I walk around the fishing area, and that was the diversity of the vessels that you get there. So I think that's quite important always to have a good mix like that and looking after all your customers. So that was fascinating to understand. So thanks for that, Richard. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, and I must apologize for losing the recording for, I think, 2 sessions of 5 minutes, as I'm seagoing at the moment and struggling with the connectivity.
I know some. So the history goes back well into the historic times, and it starts at the lowest bridging point, which is commonly the case with most ports.
Something I did touch on is the technology that's going on in Plymouth. So Plymouth's pretty much and small pushing electric tugboat radio remote control. So not to be used for shipping, but for example, the Gregoria needed a rib to push her off the pontoon the other day. If that can be done remote control from the pontoon while you let the ropes go, you know, could that be upscaled in the future 10, 15 years time? So Turnchapel Wharf, the technology there that's happening in the trials, Thales, it's well above my pay grade, but it's happening and it's fantastic to see. And the Mayflower She's going to be going to America probably within the next week. It's not going to be a big press thing, but it's going to be a massive press thing if she gets to the other side. And our apprentices, they're actually going to be on watch for it. They're actually going to be over at Turnchapel doing a watch system and keeping eyes on this unmanned vessel while it goes across. Probably be quite boring for them, but the thought of it is you know, good for them to be involved with and do a bit of a 4 to 8 watch, keeping eyes on an unmanned vessel. Hey, Bob.
Yeah, Richard, just wondering how much of a clash or conflict is there between the leisure users in Plymouth and you as a commercial operator? Do you find that the yachts, when in the summer, can get in the way and all that kind of thing, or is it for so strictly when you're operating, everybody keeps out of the way? I know you've got a small craft to help, but does it become a problem?
Yachts are generally okay, but if they're racing, we call it the red mist. No matter what size of ship it's got, if they're starting a race, they'll insist on starting that race in the middle of the channel. And there's been a few incidents. To be honest, most of our problems are now wild swimmers and paddleboarders. That's the massive problem.
Yeah, you seem to have done a good job with the jet skiers. I see that, you know, people have been arrested, and there seems to be a bit more normality, or, you know, people understanding that jet skis don't entitle them to scoot off and go wherever they feel like it. So that's a bit of a success story, isn't it?
It is, and we want, you know, there's something called a national marine park, which is going off at tangents, which a lot of people are showing concern about. And, you know, we don't want to, they don't like jet skis because that doesn't fit with the national marine park thing, but actually we want to promote the sensible use of the jet skis. They're used for safety, they're used for, you know, events. We've got Lewis Pugh coming down, he's swimming around the Newstone, he's going out on a pilot boat in a few weeks. But, you know, we want the jet skis are going to be the safety boats. We'd rather work with them, do what's done properly. And by asking them to register, and when they register, we send them the safety advice, they put the sticker on their boat. It just makes them feel a little bit involved. And by sending something to their house, yes, Sandra in the office, she's fantastic. It costs us, but we don't charge. But we know people don't read signs. People that use the jet skis don't read signs. So by something being sent to their house when they register, at least they've got that opportunity to open something, go, oh, look, there's a high speed area, I'll go there next time, rather than off Sutton Channel, perhaps.
Do you charge them to launch the jet skis? I know that in the Elm now, it's £20 a year to use the water. I mean, is there a charge for jet skiers or people like that to use the sand?
No, but the catwater, yes. They should be paying harbour dues if they launch on a slipway and transit through the catwater.
I think we should charge off Wembury, Bob, because Wembury Beach isn't actually covered by the Elm or the catwater, so we should set up our own little business here.
It's funny you should ask, because we're under a lot of pressure to do what the Elm have done and charge paddleboarders. So we've just discussed that at board level and my local user group, because my customers, the leisure users, are wanting us to charge the paddleboarders. And there's a bit of a demand. You've got to charge them. And interestingly, the feedback from the genuine paddleboard users, they agreed with it. They said, no, we think you should, because it's out of control. So for other reasons, I've delayed it a year. We'll review it next year, partly because of the bad press that Foy got recently. But
trouble is, Richard, they don't keep their wallets in their bikinis.
Exactly, yeah. But they made the good point and said, look at the effort you've done with stand-up paddleboarders. We've done water safety nights. You give up your weekends to engage on the slipways. You go to the sub schools and get the charts out, your staff. You've got a code of conduct that you've designed and promoting it on social media. You've put metal signs on all the slipways around the catwater. Other ports have now copied that. How much does all that cost? And how many, you know, I think we did 18 rescues last year, just in the catwater. That's not lifeboat, which is, I think it was over 100 for paddleboarders. But they said, how much does that cost? And when you actually add it all up and the time and the money, they said, well, that's £15,000. And our harbour dues have been paying for that. And that's the sailors' harbour due. And you put so much effort into making it safer for the paddleboarders who just continually get in the way of ships and result in rescues. Yeah. It's an interesting point in discussion.
Same with wild swimmers, is it?
Yeah, so you're not allowed to swim in the catwater, but they do.
They do, yeah.
But we've rescued a few with the new pilot boat already. So it's already paid its worth.
Can't charge. That's what you can charge them. That's it.
Salvage.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard. Absolutely fascinating. As I was saying earlier, there's so much that I've learned on this presentation. So thank you very much for that and entertaining us. Yeah, and the diversity of vessels, and yeah, importantly, the engagement with the local community. And as you were mentioning there, leisure users are thought of, and it's working well. I'm going to stop the recording now.